This is Lon Winters with Graphic Elephants.
This is Jimmy Lamp.
This is Matt Vassallo with the RhinstoneWorld.com.
And you're listening to the Two Regular Guys podcast.
And you are listening to the Two Regular Guys podcast.
Hosted by...
My name is Terry Combs, RG, regular guy.
And Aaron Montgomery.
We're just regular guys having fun and trying to make a living in this really cool and exciting industry.
I think we all want to succeed 100% of the time.
Seek to understand before I try and make myself understood.
Bring a ton of great information.
Coming to you live from somewhere dark, dirty, and dank. All right. Well, welcome into the show. It is Friday, August 5th, 2022. I'm Terry Combs. You can find me at terrycombs.com.
And I'm Aaron Montgomery, and you can find me at oursuccessgroup.com. Terry, today we're going to bring in Joe Kramer, who works with AMB3R Creative and is going to talk shop with us today. In fact, it's already started, guys. So we're primed and ready. And in the pre-show discussion, it was already happening. So he's been in shops throughout the world and worked with many major retailers and decorating techniques and different things like embroidery and screen print and applique and much, much more. And he even said to us before the show, and he'll get into this, is, he's kind of broke the rules, right? People like, oh, you can't do that. Well, why not, right? So that was, I can't wait, man. I'm already stoked about this, Terry. This is going to be great.
Well, it sounds like the world of garment decorating, doesn't it?
It does.
Why can't I do that? That doesn't seem right.
Let's give it a try. What the heck? I love it.
Yeah, and before the show started, we're like, we should be recording this. This is great stuff. So we'll try to get back to it since you guys
Yeah. So remember that, Joe, by the way. All right. So, Terry, I know we got a news item real quick and then getting into this here, but let's just say hi this morning to a couple folks that are checked in here. Lyndon is said, looking forward to Education Friday. Good morning, guys. Good morning to you, Lyndon. Thanks for being here. And then we've got Jeremy Picker. Greetings from Denver. He's got his 4-shot latte in hand, ready to soak in the merch madness. So going to be rocking and rolling. And then Todd Downing from Fat Dad Wholesale checking in as well, Terry. And Rich and Cindy, good morning to you, Cindy, and thank you guys so much for tuning in. We are really excited to talk to Joe here, Terry. But got a quick news item for us?
I do actually, and thanks to Eric for reminding, because this is something that happened a couple of weeks ago, and we haven't mentioned it on the show. But our friends over at Apparel, I guess it might be a little braggy, so
That's all right.
Over your ears if you don't want to hear any bragging. But our good friends over at Apparel List have come out with the top 10 influencers in the garment in the decorated apparel industry, and the Two Regular Guys are on that list of top 10 influencers. So we're pretty excited about that, and we have joined a slate of incredible decorators and previous guests here on the Two Regular Guys podcast, and also on that list is our intrepid producer, Eric Campbell. So also a top 10 influencer in the industry. And if you'd like to take a look at that list, you can see, I think, Eric, of course, has it up on the screen. And and I think it's attached to all of his emails too. No, just kidding, Eric. But hey, we really appreciate it. Thanks to the folks over at Apparel List for thinking of the Two Regular Guys and our producer here, Eric, and naming us to that top 10 list. And I do feel kind of bad, Aaron, because the Apparel List people did give me a T-shirt, and you haven't gotten yours yet, but I think it's only because I ran into them in New Jersey.
I think I might actually have gotten it. I think it showed up in the mail. I can't remember.
Oh, nice.
I got to go look at it. It was recent. So
they did send you one, because they sent me one as well. So now I have two.
There you go.
But actually none, because I see Kim wearing them.
There you go. All right. Well, and also on that list are friends of ours, Jay Bissell, Jeremy Picker. I mean, it's a really great list. So definitely go check it out and follow everybody on there. So I thought it was really cool and quite an honor to be part of that group of people, Terry. So
absolutely.
All right. Well, let's hit it. You ready to hit a dad joke here real quick?
Let's hear it.
All right. Am I getting echo? Okay. All right. Well, let's hit this dad joke real quick. This is now, if I can kind of share real quick where this came from. There's a equipment supply store, right? Wow, it's okay. Terry, are you getting feedback on my end? Sorry to.
Sound perfect here.
Okay. All right. So, so this was there's an equipment supply store just up the street from my house, and every week they change the dad joke on the sign. So this came from that equipment supply store. So enjoy. All right. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Did you know that my horse is an insomniac?
No, your horse is an insomniac?
Yeah, it's a real nightmare. There's some head shaking. That's probably one of those that we have to explain and go from there. So anyhow, now just another quick note. Joe is somebody that might be bringing some dad jokes with him as well. So they'll get better. They'll get better. I promise.
That's awesome. Well, hey, before we jump in, we want to thank everybody for checking out the Two Regular Guys podcast. And we are always looking for new guests like Joe. And so if you or anyone you know would like to join us on the show, go to calendly.com/2 regular guys with your show ideas. If you are listening to the podcast version of the show, we would appreciate you sharing the Two Regular Guys podcast with all your industry friends so they can become regulators too. And wherever you're listening, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Podcast, everywhere out there, you can find the Two Regular Guys. We would love if you give us a review, and just go there and do it right now before we start our interview.
There you go. All right. Well, Terry, so let's see here. Todd with his follow-up. Now you're going to stir up a lot of responses. So, all right. or Todd, that one should have been reined in. Oh boy. All right. There's more, and we're just going to leave it at that. Well, before we get Joe in here, let's hear a quick word from our Success Group, my company, about business owner mindset. So I want to share with you 3 mental states most business owners struggle to master. It's goal setting so that you believe it's possible. It's facing fears to be able to step outside of your comfort zone. And finally, taking action even when you're not sure what action to take. Now, 90% of the challenges business owners have faced have nothing to do with the nuts and bolts of running a business. It's not the accounting, the production, or even the marketing. It is the mindset. Those challenges are nothing to overcome when you are a business owner with the proper mindset. At our Success Group, we get to support decorators who are overwhelmed. For an investment of only $5, you can check it out for the first 30 days. Just head over to the website below to have more clarity and confidence in your business. All right. Well, check that out. And hopefully our Success Group can support you guys out there if you're looking to build the foundation of your business and really kind of get those, important pieces that we need to kind of launch from, or even if you've been around for a while, that foundation is very important. So check that out.
All right.
All right, Terry. Well, would you like to bring in our guest here, sir? Would you mind?
Yeah, absolutely. Joe Kramer has been in the apparel design and development for more than 27 years and has an extensive background in embroidery, applique, screen printing, graphic design, and all the aspects it takes to move a customer's dreams into a production-friendly environment. Having created astounding apparel designs for massive brands, he now brings his considerable expertise with corporate identity, graphic design, and premium branding to his new role as the head of operations, development, and design at AMB3R Creative. Welcome into the show, Joe.
There we go. We got you, Joe. Welcome in.
Thanks so much for having me this morning, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's great to have you.
I got to tell you, I'm a little jealous of your camera setup there.
Yeah, I'll have to give you a little bit of a history there. During the pandemic, I had a really good friend of mine, a musician friend of mine. We grew up together. I'll at least preface it with this. I used to play guitar in a big band, jazz band for like 20 years and done a lot of pro, musicianship playing. And I still do. Still have a band here in Phoenix that we play with. And so this is actually my primarily my music studio. But then as the pandemic changed a little bit of how we interact, we started to play what we call over the wire. So we started to like log into a very like based on proximity, but it was basically a system where we could all log in kind of like a chat room, but it was all of our own instruments, and the latency was extremely low. So we could actually play in real time, but across town at our homes. And that's kind of where it started from. And then the next thing you know, I've got, of course, my wife lets me, this is the loft in our house. She lets me, put all guitars on the walls and then of course the lighting came from the a buddy of mine. His name is Matt Suarez. He was like, dude, you've got to get on this Twitch platform, because there's all kinds of musicians that have their primary income was playing live, and they don't have anywhere to play live now. So they've moved to this Twitch platform, which is designed for mostly gamers. So you have a lot of gamers out there who show the game they're playing, and they have their little, their little video off to the corner so they can comment on it, and they have their little microphone and everything. And it's this huge industry I didn't know anything about. And they've basically made a new category for musicians specifically. Well, it's kind of worth mentioning because they've also made another category for creatives. So there's a lot of creatives out there that are actually making artwork. And I've started to Twitch on there a little bit just to show people how to do separations, just to teach them how to do things that they'll never learn unless someone takes them under their wing and then, and truly spends time teaching them how and why we're choking and trapping, how and why we're building safety nets into our files before they go into production, things like that. Yeah. So I've been trying to throw some little nuggets of wisdom out there to help the newbies coming up in the world who are really interested in that, especially since I feel like the industry itself has changed so much. We have a lot of folks that like I remember 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we'd have art students coming out of art school that are just beating the door down, trying to see if we'd take them in and teach them, the ropes and how to do things. And, ever since programming became what it is, they'd rather just go off and program, and, they don't really want to do the art anymore. Yeah. So it's kind of a trip. But anyway, yes, that's how the brainchild began with the studio and how.
So what you're saying is during COVID, you had two choices. You could be really productive and do something really creative like you did, or eat chips and get hooked on Days of Our Lives like your mom.
There you go. That lasted for about 20 minutes, and then I had to go, come up. But so that's how this came to be. And then, of course, I haven't looked back just because it's been so fun. And, of course, because that whole, pandemic culture forced us to be a lot more, necessity breeds invention. So you start looking into technology, start looking into various ways of getting, I've met so many friends around the world because of it, and we still collaborate, and I send my music tracks off to them, and they record theirs and send it back to me, and we put things together, and, it's just a lot of fun. So it's kind of awesome. It came out. So, but the company I worked for at the time, we didn't shut down. We were still pounding out shirts, the whole time. So it was stressful, but we got through it,
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, all right, Joe, before we get into this, because the horse jokes are still happening in the comments here. So you got to help me out here. You got to save me. I'm hanging by a thread here.
Okay. Yeah. So
help me out.
I had one prepared for today, which was, let's see here. I'm going to go with diets, right? I mean, we're all,
COVID, yeah.
some point or another, we're trying to, Terry. But I was thinking about getting a little bit deeper into my diet, but at this point in my life, I've just got too much on my plate.
There we go. All right. Very good. You saved me, Joe. All right. Well, we started hearing a little bit of history here, but Joe, really kind of tell us a little bit about, kind of how you got started in this industry. Sure. Where you, just give us the origin story.
So the origin story is I grew up in a little agriculture town, El Centro, California. So it's about 60 miles west of Yuma and 90 miles east of San Diego, right on the border, just north of Mexicali. And predominantly Hispanic, demographic. A lot of it was I believe like Salinas, California is going to be the area. Central California is going to be where they just, most of the agriculture is done in that state for a lot of the country. And I think the Imperial Valley, at least at the time when I was growing up there, was like number 2. And now a lot of it's just gone into Mexico. But that's kind of where the setting where I grew up, very farming town, and so if you weren't, you had a few choices. You could either become, a nurse, border patrol, teacher, city services, and that's it. Like you had to pick from one of those categories, and that was it. So, coming into the art world in an environment like that, people looking at you like, what are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with an art degree? And so I ended up starting there, and I want to say mid 90s, I started to build computers. I was 13, 14, something like that. And I started building computers, and I had a blast with it. Today, when you put a PC together, you just pop the components in, turn it on, and the motherboard pretty much knows what's going on. And back in those days, we just had to set jumpers and make everything perfect, or you'd fry the chip and have to start all over again. And so that was kind of what got me started. And then I remember I had a friend of mine, Adobe's going to love hearing this. I had a friend of mine say, hey, I got a copy of this Photoshop. You might want to take a look at that. I'm like, what is Photoshop? I don't know, So, he put it in my computer at the time, and we're still typing DOS commands, to launch stuff. This is before Windows 95. Windows 95 came out. We just double click it and, opens right up. And so, anyway, started getting into it. And self-taught, right? We didn't have the YouTubes and the various resources we have today where you could just go and learn how to, change your brake pads, by yourself if you want to, didn't have any of that. So back in those days, chat rooms were even very minimal. They had them, but the chances you'd find someone who knew anything about that specifically were very slim, very low. So we would, I started getting into it, self-taught. Hey, ask a few friends. Hey, have you tried this? Oh yeah, my work uses it for, letterheads, or my work uses it for whatever. You start sharing secrets, and next thing you know, deep into this, doing like fake IDs in high school, and I was really good at it. And I know it's kind of starts off as like this "catch me if you can" kind of reference. It really wasn't about like doing something illegal, not getting caught. It was about the thrill of being able to figure out how to separate the lamination. And it was the mechanics of getting everything done so perfect that it would render this virtually you can't tell the difference situation. And that was really what I think kicked it all off. I used to draw, like I guess my drawing time was my dad had us going to church three times a week, and it was the 3-time reminder that there was something worse than school. And so you had to keep yourself busy, but you couldn't goof off. You had to sit there, so I would draw and draw. And one day I had this teacher, my PE teacher in, I think, junior high, and I don't remember if it was 7th grade or 8th grade, but he said, dude, you're doing so much of this drawing. You should really go talk to my son, Brett, Driscoll. He owns this. And I was familiar with the Driscolls, which was local, like surf and skate shop in town. But they also did, besides screen print and embroidery, they also did like the Letterman's jackets and for all the local high schools. And he also had a really nice retail space too. So a lot of surf and skate and retail shops there. So I blew it off. I didn't take his suggestion. I just kind of blew it off. I didn't really think much of it. And as like my first job coming out of high school, I got a job with let's see, it was probably right in the middle of high school. I got a job at a local newspaper, and I was in the editorial section. And compared to what I do now, it was, I can only imagine I don't know how I got through that. It was one of the most boring departments I ever worked for. Worked with some great people. It's just because it's so conservative, it just wasn't my flavor. And I had a buddy of mine. He's like, dude, you should come over to Driscoll's. We could really use another artist. This other guy's moving on to greener pastures, and we could use another artist. And I don't, at this time, I knew a lot about the programs, but I wasn't necessarily well versed in, again, like I was mentioning before, the SEPs, the engineering of the files, all those different aspects where art, WYSIWYG is good, but can you engineer the files so that someone can actually use it after you? And so I went over there to check it out, and the owner there, Brett, who's now let's see here, what is going on here? 2 years he's been gone with us, but let's see here, he's gone into a let me see if I can get my video back here, gentlemen. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's all good. I think, StreamYard's
So,
using
Brett,
a lot of resources there, so we can still hear you. So yeah.
Okay, so my buddy Brett, he's now been gone a couple years. He passed away of a heart attack, but he was the first guy who really took me under his wing, and said, this is something I think you could do. The conversation started out where I was going to work for him for free for like a week to see if he was going to like it, and he's like, nah. After a couple of days, he's like, nah, you got it, buddy. You're in. So I ended up working for him for like 7 years and doing, the screen print, between the screen print, embroidery, the vinyl graphics, and the wraps. That kept me so busy, and kept my mind on a lot of challenges throughout the process. Because, in those days, I think we had like a Zante printer. We didn't have, no one could afford an image setter. That was ridiculous. Those things were so expensive. And so this was long before the days of, inkjet film output, which today, is just the standard. So when I first started there, we were still doing, Ruby Lift paste ups, and we were cutting out halftone patterns and pasting them up, and, cheerleading, 1996 or whatever, and stuff like that. So it was an absolute blast to get to learn all that. And that's really what kicked it off. That was how the interest came. The great part too about it was after high school, I was really freaked out. I did not know what I was going to do. And my mom is like, you should definitely go into graphics. Is what you're good at doing. So we went, looked at some graphic schools, and the closest I could get to was in San Diego was UCSD at a visual communications degree. And I didn't want that. I did it for like a year, and I was like, I want a graphic design degree. And so the Art Institute San Diego they had been there, but they just didn't have a lot of classes at the time. So they were still growing. And so I ended up transferring there. And then a couple of years later, I spent the last year or two at the Art Institute Online, which was primarily facilitated out of their Pittsburgh facility, which is their home office. And I had my academic advisor says, I really think you should come out and do the portfolio review out here in Pittsburgh, because we invite a lot of the recruiters out to come and see the new crop, if you will, of graduates. And that was where I met my boss to be, Mr. Bob Pouchet, who brought me on to help them and their team for sourcing, facilitate position. That would be the screen print and embroidery technician for Abercrombie and Fitch. And that experience was what ended up taking me around the world, teaching factories, teaching art teams. This is how we do what we do, and these are the best practices. And please stop telling the factories to add clear to a PMS color until we get what we think we want, things like that. So we were mediating a lot of the relationships between what design thinks they want and what the factory can actually do, as well as, pricing and techniques. And, you're not washing it right. Can you brush the applique a little bit more this way? And that's, next thing you know, they're handing me a portion of the keys. It wasn't just my my part of it, but there's just so many guys out there that we within the Abercrombie spectrum that we got to build an R&D facility out there. It's now known as Building R, and we got to bring in new embroidery machines, new screen print facility, just everything that we needed. So it was like Bob Pouchet, Jason Kahn, some of my other buddies like Troy B, Craig Brown, still there actually to this day. They've all were part of this huge undertaking to build a $4 million research and design facility. David Vlasovich, I can't forget him. He's an absolute wealth of knowledge when it comes to washing. So the guy had pallets of perlite and volcanic stones being delivered to that building on like a weekly basis, just so they could get the wash right for denim. And we spent a tremendous amount of time with laser machines and how we could get certain effects with those laser machines and just anything and everything. We were actually using ink burnout to cut applique fabric on a tee as it's being printed on the screen print press. So when it comes all the way back around, you just peel it off.
Interesting.
And we would simulate printed stitches on the top just to see if we could do it, honestly. Just to see if we could do it. So it was an absolute blast, getting into that part of it. But
I'm going to guess that on the backside, production side of Abercrombie, it wasn't a bunch of guys without their shirts on, right? Not like in the store.
Definitely not. Definitely not. Despite the main press, right? We never saw that part of the company. Not much. I mean, they would put again, I can't speak intelligently what they're doing now, just because since Mike Jeffries, the CEO, has moved on, and the board of directors there has done, I think, a great job at reassembling what their new direction is. I can't speak intelligently about how it is now, but I know back then, yes, the what do they call them, the Abercrombie boys, the front desk guys. That's what they call them, the front desk guys. That's what they call them, and they would have them, posted up at every entryway of the campus buildings. So you'd walk in and you have, how's it going? What can I, oh, you want so and so? To your right, 4 down on your left, that kind of
right.
So
and offering jobs to all the pretty people that came in.
Right. Exactly. Oh, that shirt doesn't fit you. It's not for you, bro. Okay.
Well, I have to confess, my one of my sons, when he was in college, was a manager of an Abercrombie store.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. And as far as that side of it goes, I mean, they, from what I understand, they've got a good program and they bring folks in and essentially show them how to run a business. This is what we're doing. So, we want to be a part of it, kind of thing. So, but yeah, we did. We were in the background with the chemistry sets. We were paying zero attention to, that. What it's funny. I get people, hey, were you part of this documentary? I took no part in it. They reached out. They asked if anybody was willing to give up some dirt. I'm like, no, we were busy. We didn't have time for that kind of stuff,
Well, that's cool though, to be able to I'm sure every garment decorator out there would love to say, hey, I'm going to spend the next week experimenting with this. And
correct.
So
that's
correct.
Awesome. I mentioned to a buddy of mine, Jason Kahn. He was a big part of it. I think he came from Bob came from Disney, and Jason, I forget, from one of the real big shops. Jason, I'm sorry if you're hearing this, buddy, but he was a big part of it too, because he was in charge of actually cataloging every technique that we ever did. I mean, I remember that guy putting in super late nights just so we could have, a specific catalog with a sample of, just for example, like self-crack ink. There's heavy self-crack with a vintage plastisol underbase. There's just regular self-crack, all these different variations of what we know to just be a water-based self-crack. That when it comes off the end of the press, you tug on it, and they wanted every shirt, especially in the premium brands, to have a different distress pattern, and that's the only way we could figure it out. I mean, it's any budget-minded person would say just build it into the art, and reproduce it as efficiently and as fast as you can, get it out there. But they're like, no, we're pretentious enough to ask for it this way, so let's ask for it this way, and so they would go and they would actually have multiple people at the end of the dryers pulling on it, like specifically different people doing it because they wanted it to look different, because if the same person did it all day, then it would look all the same. So they were that obsessive about making sure everything looked different.
Wow,
that's cool though.
Yeah. So that was fun project.
Joe, you had mentioned you kind of talked about this early on, talking about artists, but tell us a little bit about where you think the industry is headed right now.
Well, the industry, as far as I understand, is less is more is what I'm seeing right now, at least in the higher end retail industry. I think that for the most part, the days of the exploded prints and the overly exaggerated size of graphics on garments, I wouldn't say it's dead, but it certainly isn't the direction anymore. I even have a lot of the people, again, like I previously mentioned, we still keep in touch. They still ask me, hey, how did we do this? How did we do that? It was 20 years ago. And, they can't catalog every single thing. So the industry, I like to think that decoration and anything that's, I wouldn't say loud and proud, but just very, dimensional and complex. I like to always think that there's still a demand for it. But I feel like right now it's really a game of darts, man. You really got to hit the right market, the right demand, the right demographic at the right time for the right event. And then those extra efforts will pay off. To throw a 2 or 3 layer applique at a cheerleading squad, it'll look cool, but there's obviously going to be a financial cap as to what can actually be worth all that effort, because that's a tremendous amount of work. Between lasering the fabrics and getting them all digitized properly and laying them all down one by one, that's a tremendous amount of work. So I'm not saying it can't happen, but I think there is a demand for, because we're battling with two things. We're battling with, I think, still the 2008 recession. That was when we saw a lot of that over graphical, just really elaborate stuff. We just kind of saw that just hit a brick wall. After that, I mean, I could see it on a chart where the embroidery sales just dropped off. It went back to left chest only on embroidery, and it went back to front chest only on screen print until the economy could get back, to a better state. Or if it was a left chest full back on a screen print, it was a one color, left chest and then a full color back. That's just what I saw. And I feel like that, really multidimensional decoration ended up really not gaining the same legs that it had before that 2008 recession happened. So now, and a big reason why I had come on, spent some time coming on to now AMB3R Creative, is because Jeremy and I have always had a very similar romanticism with applique, with 3-dimension, like a lot of dimensional decorations and multimedia. And he just has a really good vibe that I've always been able to jive with. We don't really have to, the same thing. He and I can just sit here and talk about this kind of stuff all day long, and our wives have to pull us away, hey, dinner, but that's the passion that we've I never thought, going back to sitting in church making a drawing, that I would ever be sitting here right now talking to such influential people in the industry. I've been in the dark, no pun intended here with my studio, but I've been in the dark in the back, messing with the chemistry set for so long. I haven't really taken the goggles off in years. This is just where I've always functioned. And so as I got to talking more and more with Jeremy over time, I I realized that I do have this gift of wisdom and knowledge, and I'm not taking any steps to find the right platform to share it with the people.
Yeah.
Because I'm not worried about someone stealing secrets. Nothing we're doing is secret. It's all regurgitated versions of what's been done. But I feel it's our responsibility as artists to continue to evoke that emotion in others, to keep that ball rolling. I feel it's our responsibility. So where I see the industry going, especially in overly elaborate, decoration, is that I think that it's going to be more of a pinpointed result. You really got to get everything right. You're not just going to throw something like that up at a giveaway event, where they're going to order 10,000 pieces. It's just not going to be a wise use of funds at that point. But that's where I see it going. And and also too, congratulations on being influencers.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Speaking of influencers, Jeremy says applique forever, so we got to get that in there. A little double high five there. So there you go.
And a little funny blurb I'll put in about Jeremy, just because I've known him for so long, and it's one of those relationships where at first, when we first met, I knew of him, but we hadn't really interacted a lot. This was, I don't know, it was years ago, 15 years ago, something like that. But he was working for a company in Phoenix called Fabtex Graphics, and I actually went and worked for Fabtex Graphics for a while. While we were building the development facility at Abercrombie and Fitch, before I want to say 2 years or so before we built that facility, we were outsourcing all of our applique sampling and some domestic applique laser cutting production to several companies around the U.S. and one in Canada, but a lot of it was done here in Phoenix, where I'm at a company called Fabtex Graphics, owned by Steve Schlesinger and at the time Scott Burrell were partners. Long story short, Abercrombie passed the torch to me and said, "We want you to help build the digitizing side of what we're doing." I said, "Okay, I think you need somebody who knows a little bit more about it than I do. I mean, I know, but I don't know to that specific degree." So ended up going and hiring Scott and Steve, dissolved their partnership. And at the time we were sending our applique purchase orders for sampling, because we were doing a lot of sampling there at the facility, so that we would keep a sample with us at the home office of Abercrombie. We would send the other one to the factory so they would knock it off. So they actually had a proper graphic standard. And at that time, Jeremy was working for Fabtex Graphics. So that's how he got his start in learning about how all this applique was done, how it was executed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So unfortunately, I was way far back on the sidelines, but I did get to watch Jeremy build his business with Amber, and then, throw a football 7-8 years later, I find myself working for Fabtex as an ops manager, and here comes all these orders from Amber, and man, we pounded them. So it was really cool to kind of see that circle of life, happen. And it all started from the passion of again, overly elaborate decoration techniques.
Well, speaking of the over elaborate, but you've already talked a little bit about it, talking about high end decoration, right? And where that might fit and stuff like that. But we've got a variety of listeners here, all the way from some startups to people that have been around for a while, and everything in between. But if you're, let's just say you're a screen printer, and you're doing, Terry calls it the bread and butter work, the Jim's towing, the 2-color, like you said, left chest, and maybe
absolutely.
But as listeners, as people tuned in from that perspective, why should they really understand this high end decoration technique?
Let's see, for an artist side of it, that I could tell you, at least from my
perspective, wherever that takes you.
Right, it's because the same left chest again and again and again becomes what it sounds like. It's the same old thing again and again. Now the good thing about it is it's easy to execute. As long as you got a good digitizing scenario and you just pounding out embroidery left chest, great. That's if that fits the model, we'll take it. You know, it's helping people feed their families and pay their bills, so let's do it. From a small company standard, there are things that could be done to take what would normally be a simple left chest and make it a little bit spicier. I mean, there's times where we can actually cut a piece of fabric around the outside of the logo specifically so that it will fray, and just, you know, you lay your tracing stitch down and put your piece of fabric on there and then sew the logo over the top of it, and you have a really nice little addition to something that was no more than what, $8-9 a yard of fabric over at one of your local fabric stores. Little things like that don't seem like a big deal. Your customers like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
You know, and that makes a huge impact. The other thing is, at the smaller business level, I feel like you can actually get away with a little bit more, in the sense that if you want to try a different kind of thread, and each cone of thread is, you know, $15 at that smaller level, you know, you can do a little bit more. I mean, when you're doing high-end retail, you got to now convince the factory that they're getting paid enough to go and order, you know, an entire pallet of thread for the next 3 jobs you have coming through. And that, going from an $8 cone to a $15 cone, that's a significant ask. You know, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars different at that level. So with the smaller shops, there's other things you could do too, which is, I remember like the Letterman's jackets that I was mentioning before at one of the first place I ever worked. We would just take pre-made chenille on felt patches and just embroider whatever we wanted to on them, and we would order slightly smaller ones, and that we would put people's logos on that and then put them to the, you know, center of the hats. And you know how like one hat feeds the other, one department gives another department an idea, and they take it from there, which is super, super cool. But I think in some ways some of that development is better because it's a smaller shop than if it was a bigger shop where you have rotating screen print operators. So you ended up training half of them one day, but you didn't train the other half. And so when that job comes back through, you don't have that same crew with all that familiarity of what to do and how to do it. Whereas a smaller crew, you can pull them off to the side, buy them a pizza lunch or something, and say, hey guys, thanks so much for, you know, helping us really get this technique nailed down, because the customer's super, super excited, which is what it's all about. You know, the customers, they get bored sometimes too. They want something a little different, and how do you do that? And I'm sure Eric, what I like about your podcast, but you know, Eric's podcast also, is that he really does help some of the smaller shops get their feet wet, and above all, to not be afraid of trying something new. I mean, obviously when it's 3:00 in the morning and you've been working on something and grinding on it for hours and hours, there's a time where you just have to push away from the desk and say, this is not what I need to be doing right now. But I just love how the network now is so strong, where you can reach out to, there's so many Facebook groups now where you can throw a problem up there and get a response within minutes, and not have to, I just remember the old days, you'd have to call and be super aggressive about getting those answers to find out, you know, how do I, you know, get an inline heat press for my screen print machine, or how do I, you know, accomplish these things, you know, because we have deadlines and we have a technique we're trying to hit that we said we could hit, but we didn't know we could or not. So we're now stressing out about it. So anyway, that's
okay. Hey, Joe, I want to go back to something you said just a little bit earlier. This really stuck with me. And so I wanted to kind of discuss this with you a little bit more too. You kind of mentioned, you know, okay, put that piece underneath, you know, kind of just make it pop a little bit more, right? I think, in fact, you said, you know, the customers are just like, oh, wow. Right. And for you as the decorator, it wasn't that much more involved, right? So you're just adding, you know, I would just say you're adding perceived value in a lot of ways. So I guess I'd love to hear your take on that too, right? I mean, I hear this all the time working with small business owners that, oh, well, they won't pay that in my town, or that, those kinds of comments.
Yeah.
But I think it has more to do with perceived value. So what are your thoughts there as an artist?
Absolutely. Well, perceived value is obviously half the battle, right? I mean, it's what we think it's worth, not necessarily how much work we had to put into it to see what it was actually worth. So what I'll do here is I'll share a couple things with you. I think it'd be kind of cool. I think I can, let's see here, share.
So for those of you guys listening on the podcast side, Joe's actually going to be pulling up some images for us here. So we'll walk you through them as well. But you're definitely going to want to come check us out over on YouTube. Just search for Two Regular Guys, and you can tune in here. But here it comes. Awesome. Okay. Eric, whenever you're ready, bud.
So this is the last company I worked for, Extreme Apparel. And one of the reasons why I want to show this piece here specifically is because it is, this was a mistake, actually. And this was a garment that we did this embroidery for, and the customer loved everything about it, just didn't love the garment that we had got for them, which I believe was previously negotiated, but sometimes things don't work out the way we want it to. So my boss, Mark, at the time was like, hey, can we fix that? I said, well, give me a minute, give me a day or so. Let me scratch my head on this one. So I'm like, yeah, all right, like I came up with an idea. So this is an example of me covering something up. And because it was on a piece of outerwear, you'd never know that we had done something on it before. So I think this thing came out to be, some of you embroidery folks out there are really going to appreciate. This was, I want to say this was right around 15,000 stitches, something like that, on an oval I believe was around 9.5 inches wide. Most of the stitching is actually in the outlines, the gray silver outlines, even though it looks like it should be the red. The red wasn't that bad, but we covered it up. And so going back to Aaron's question here, this is going to look far more expensive than if I would have just embroidered that logo on the fabric by itself. Because you would see the gray fabric right through everything. You wouldn't get to see this black piece of poly twill that's, holding down the fort, if you will. And it looks far more like an expensive patch than it does a simple, back center embroidery. So that's what I really dig, about that specific piece. There's nothing special about it. I think I punched it in Wilcom, and it's not perfect. You still see some trims in between the letters that we didn't grab, but this is also probably like an initial, again, I just take quick pictures of things I work on over the years and let Google sort it for me. So when I type in embroidery, all my embroidery things pop up over the years.
The important thing is it didn't end up at Goodwill. You probably an expensive garment. So
exactly, because
we can all use those tips.
and I'm really glad you mentioned that too, because I see this happen all the time where you got this awesome garment. There's this one thing that the customer didn't like about it. Technically, it's everything they wanted, but you don't want to trash it, but the customer can't take it back, or they don't want it, or you can't. Is it? I guess that's what I'm trying to bring up is that you got to weigh out is it better for me to just discount it and clear it out and try to give it away to the customer so I can at least make some of my costs back? Or is it better for me just to cover it up completely and try to do something else? Screen print's a whole different animal because screen print is typographically sensitive. So if you have, several layers of one print, the chances that you'll be able to put more layers over the top of that print and not see the underprint are very slim. You're going to see, that variation, of
you're going to go way down the rabbit hole with that.
Exactly. And so the ability to be able to take something, I can't even tell you how many times we put patches over the top of old, there was a sleeve print that was the wrong it was the wrong year. So instead of 2019 or something, it was supposed to be 2020, and that was all incorrect. So I mean, just something as simple as ordering flag patches online and just heat press them over the top and keep going will save you 300 shirts. How much are flag patches on eBay? Get 300 of them for a couple $100 and save yourself $3,000 job or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
So
real quick, Joe, one of the regulators here, Ramona, just clarifying. So under the extreme oval, it is another design that you're hiding. That's correct, right?
That is correct. That is correct. And I wish I would have taken a before and after of this one for this an example, but I did not.
Yeah, that's okay. It was great. Yeah, in fact, Tim Allen says happy accident. And and Cindy says very nice save. And Cindy also said a little earlier, she says, I love putting Chanel on hoodies. I'm actually getting ready to do a run of the local high school names on zip up hoodies. So
that's great.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah,
very cool.
That's all great. I was trying to see if I could show
So
another example.
And then while you're looking that up, Mike Muldowney says, "Oh man, got here late, straight into a giant applique patch. We're talking my speed here." So
yeah, right. I love that. I love hearing that there's folks out there willing to grab onto that, just because it's not easy, and that's why we like it.
Sure.
But I still don't want to ignore Aaron's point. As far as what would the average shop be able to dive into and get their feet wet without having to really go nuts here. I've got another example here of probably the easiest form of applique that you can ever possibly dive into, which is a single layer of felt. Now, I'll tell you right now, this felt, there's no secret. This is just craft felt that you could get at Joann's. It is acrylic felt. It lasers very nicely. Some of you are like, "What? How am I going to get that?" I know there's companies out there that will make applique for you. All you got to do is send them the vector. There's companies out there that will do vector as well as the digitizing. And so, Cindy, I just saw Cindy's comment. How do you cover up the inside? Great question. So if you use backing that is cutaway instead of tearaway, then the chances of them actually peeling it off to see what's underneath are very, very slim. The other thing too is I don't know that I would sell that particular garment back to a different customer, but I would definitely take that garment and put self-branding on it, and that goes out to the employees. And that way you don't feel like you've completely lost that part of it. Hope that helps.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And I want to show a couple of things here.
Yeah,
go ahead,
Joe. While you're pulling that up, too. I don't want to miss Jeremy's comment here. He said not just because he's saying 100% Aaron, so I'm just appreciate that. But the point is what I want to get to. He says the perceived value is greater than the added cost. People give budgets based on their past experience, so we have to show and share why the added cost will get more impressions. Raw costs go up, the cost per impression goes down because it will get worn more. Yeah, that's a really good point, Jeremy. So I want to make sure we share that.
That's very true. I'll actually show you this guy. Posted this on my LinkedIn not too long ago, just so you guys could see this. This was when I was working for San Segal at Salt Lake City, Utah. We had the Landry's account, so we were doing tons of work for Bubba Gump, and Joe's Craft Shack was one of them. And so this was actually an experiment with a thread called Burmalana. And what I really like about this piece is that it really shows what fat text, I think it's like text 77, where most text weighted thread is like text 27 or right around text 30. And so this is a really cool piece just because the thread is just so soft and woolly. And we embroidered this with a wash away backing. And the end result was just awesome. You got to understand too, this thing is, I believe, 9 inches wide and I think it was right at like 10,000 stitches for something being a full chest like that. So you can just imagine these hoodies with this luxurious feel. Granted, the machine time is going to be a little bit slower with this fat thread, just because you want to make sure the hook grabs the loop and that the knot is tight and you have extra tie-off locks within your digitizing. But again, going back to the perceived value, this luxurious woolly thread sitting on a nice, hoodie versus if I were to have done this with embroidered, like normal, either poly or rayon embroidery thread. Don't get me wrong, that thread looks great, but the perceived value of this piece is just going to be exponentially higher. And yet we put a little bit more money into the thread, and we changed a little bit of our digitizing technique so that the density is not as dense, since we have thread that's almost 3 times thicker than normal thread. And that's where this piece right here gives you a tremendous amount of options. I think I did, if I remember correctly, a another piece where, here's a sample of the same technique, but I'll just kind of blow it up for you so you could see.
Yeah,
you can see how woolly that thread really is.
Yeah, that's awesome.
When you actually get to touch it. But as far as the digitizing goes, it's really not that bad where you would punch like I'm talking to the people out there running, pitches in their digitizing. If you're running like a 0.36 or millimeter, right in that range, something like this, you just punch it like 1.2, and it just comes out absolutely great for just a regular satin, like right around 1.2, and it comes out like this. The other thing to note, especially to some of our digitizers out there listening, or people out there doing it themselves, is that a lot of thread and its final result, especially after you wash the garment, if you're using a wash away backing, a lot of that density, it looks sparse, and as soon as you wash it, it looks dense, because you're going to get that 3 to 5% shrink rate of the fabric itself that's going to now relax after the backing is gone. All those thin polos that we have now today, all those sport performance fabrics usually get a lot of rigidity added to them, and that rigidity is not washing away. It's a cutaway scenario. So so that's another aspect of where this technique is going to have a little bit more of that vintage feel, as opposed to the rayons and the poly threads are going to have a bit more of a modern feel, just because that's what it is. So anyway, any of the embroidery guys and gals out there that are listening, if you've ever wanted to use, and the best way to get your feet wet with this type of technique, if you've ever wanted to use cotton wrapped polycore thread or sewing construction thread in your embroidery machines, you can. Just make sure that the size weight is going to be comparable for your digitizing, but you can all day long. It is something that when I was with Abercrombie, we had zero, if I can remember correctly, we had very little like Silco or rayon or shiny thread. Everything we did, we wanted it to be, have no sheen to it, dull in color. And you have to understand too that sewing construction thread has been pre-treated so that it doesn't shrink. It's got the minimal amount of shrinkage. So in after wash scenario, you don't see that puckering that can happen that will typically happen with traditional embroidery thread. Now, not knocking traditional embroidery thread, it's just that they're just made 2 different ways, for that part of the industry. So I went on a tangent. Sorry.
All right, no problem. we love tangents.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Hey, Joe, we're coming to the end of our hour. Where can our listeners find you out there in the world?
I think the best thing right now is probably just through LinkedIn. If you guys want to connect and drop me some lines over time. I am putting together a website. Of course, Jeremy's been a big part of that too. He's just such an influencer for me, an encourager for me. Yeah, see, he's right there. I'll knock it for you. And so, what I'm gonna? Oh, he's got it already. Yeah. He's got it on there. Yeah, hit me on and I'm absolutely happy to share with you what I don't know everything, but I just have so much fun learning about these things and talking about these things. And again, thanks so much for you guys for having me on, and for Jeremy for encouraging me, pushing me out of the nest, if you will, for being able to spend some time with you guys. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Joe, this has been fantastic. We could definitely do this all day. And so we're going to have to get you back on for sure. So that's a for sure. I wanted to talk to a couple regulators here real quick. Make sure now, first and foremost, like I said, if you are listening to the podcast version, do go and check out the social media over there, YouTube or Facebook, and see all the comments. Eric has had some great comments in there. And just lots of good stuff here. Kristen said that she got a project from a realtor who switched companies but loved their old jackets, so I'm rebranding them with a patch. What a great idea. Yeah, love that. And then Susan, we're not going to get to your question in here, but if you guys want to jump in and help Susan out with some ideas, she's looking for a digitizer. Locate a company, maybe stitch out 2,000 patches for August 24th. So anyhow, if you guys regulars want to jump in and help Susan out, we'd appreciate that very much. All right, Joe, anything that I know we left plenty on the table, so like I said, we're going to definitely have to get you back, but
we're going to leave everyone on the cliffhanger, so we have more for our next show.
Awesome. Let's do it again soon, Joe. Again, we could do this all day. I know we just scratched the surface. So and thank you so much for bringing the pictures and stuff too. That's incredible.
Yeah, and I'll have a little bit more visuals for next time too, just so we can kind of keep the party going. For sure.
Boom. All right, Joe. Thank you, sir. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and we will talk to you very soon.
Yep, sounds good. You guys have a good night. Take care.
All right, Aaron. I got to tell you, I was mesmerized by his camera.
That part was super cool too, and I mean, and then, okay. I do have 15 minutes of embroidery experience, so I don't know if that's more than you, Terry. But no, I mean, just looking at the pictures and then just all the creativity that goes on. Not to, I mean, it's one thing to be creative with the actual work that you're doing, but also then thinking about, okay, how do we increase our perceived value? What do you do with a mistake? I mean, just all those gold nuggets that flowed, through that. I thought that was really cool. So really appreciate Joe's time today. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, sir, let's get into 5 things, because we are into bonus time already here. So let's do a quick 5 things from one of our regulators here. All right, this is 5 things by Kristen Schneider of Thread Designs Incorporated. So these are 5 things to do at the end of the day for a home-based business owner. This is an awesome list, by the way. Number 1, check email one last time and respond, even if it's just to say, I got your email, when we'll get back to you tomorrow. Number 2, check your voicemail, return calls, or put them on a list to deal with first thing in the morning. Number 3, make sure you invoice all completed jobs for the day. Yes, that's got to get paid. Invoice. I love that. Number 4, set up the next day's first order, so you're ready to rock and roll right out of that. Man, Terry, that's got to be coming. Like, just, you're the production guy, so that's got to really make you happy.
Exactly right.
Yeah, awesome. And then number 5, clean off your desk and, in all caps, shut the door to the office on your way out, right? Just get that end, so that way you can kind of transition into the next phase of your day. So I love that list, Kristen. Thank you so much. Those are 5 things to do at the end of the day for home-based business owners. So,
and we would love to get 5 things from all of our other regulators as well.
Yes, indeed. So if you would like to participate in 5 things like Kristen did, she just emailed that list over to us, and that is perfectly fine in all ways, shapes, and forms. info@tworegularguys.com is where you can find that, or hit the website that you see on the screen below, tworegularguys.com/5, and that's the number 5 things. And once you're there, you can actually record into a little voice recorder right on the page. You can type into the form that's on there, or if you want to just, send us a quick video, pick up the phone to your face, send us a quick video and go from there. So we would love some more 5 things from you guys. And so we're looking forward to it. Who's going to be the next one to send us a 5 things? We'll see. Who do you think? Any bets on that, Terry? And we can't pick Eric.
Oh, dang it. I was going to pick Eric. Good joke.
All right. There you go. Awesome. Well, Terry, what do you got coming up here, sir?
My next complete screen printing business course will be in Chicago with Atlas Screen Supply. That's going to be August 27th, 28th, around the corner. At Equipment Zone in Franklin Lakes, New Jersey. That's the New York City area. That will be September 10th and 11th. And my next class here in Phoenix at Workhorse Products is going to be actually the date has changed because Workhorse had a conflict, September 25th and 26th. And just heads up, if you're looking at coming to the class in Phoenix, it is filling up really fast. So, and all my upcoming events for 2022 are, and I guess it's almost time to start 2023, are at my website at terrycombs.com. I know, crazy, huh?
Yeah. Stop saying that, Terry. Gosh, I'm not ready for that. All right. Let's talk about what Eric's got coming up here next, and then I can share a couple things that I'm going to be doing in not too distant future here. So let's see here. We are into episode. Sorry, Eric.
It's changing very quickly before our eyes. Everybody at home.
I love it. I love it.
The outline is physically changing.
Well, first and foremost, you guys get over to ericcampbell.com. As I said, there were some great comments by Eric that we didn't get a chance to bring up today as well, and gosh, when Eric has Joe on his show, oh my goodness, it's going to be a must watch. Plus it'll probably be 3 hours. So I love it. All right. So today though, if you're heading over to the Take Up, it's episode 122, Finding Your Foundation in Embroidery Digitizing and Fueling Your Growth. So in this episode, he's going to answer listeners' questions about how to get inspired and technical knowledge that will drive decisions about digitizing for machine embroidery. If you've ever heard Eric talk about consuming broadly and creating with focus, this is the episode where I'll tell the story not only of how he taught himself how to digitize, but how he looked for inspiration, experience, and answers in those early days as well. In fact, Joe talked about that, right? You gotta get out there and do all that. So, and really just how he continues to look for that inspiration. So I think this is going to be a fantastic show today. So go to ericcampbell.com and you can get all the details. You can see past episodes, and it will be a great episode today. You can also look for Eric and his extended session happening out in Impressions Expo in Fort Worth, making small run patches. And that's going to be a great seminar out there, probably in the Eric Campbell wing of the seminar hall. I have
to all of our viewers, our listeners can't see it, but I had a big smile on my face because as Aaron was reading, Eric was typing. It was like a teleprompter. Eric was trying to type faster than Aaron could read it.
Once. It was like his teleprompter. Yeah, no, it was awesome. And then Jeremy says, "Great job, Eric, producer extraordinaire." 100% agree with that. So, all right. So check out Eric again, ericcampbell.com. That's where you want to be. That's where all the action's happening. That's where the cool kids hang out. So get over there after you're done over at terrycombs.com. All right. Quickly for me, September 11th, I will be participating in an international online small business skills summit. I get to be a speaker. They're going to be bringing 30 experts over 30 days. So if you will go over to osg.link/skills summit, you can check it out. And my session is going to be called Conquering Fear and Thrive. So one of my favorite topics that comes out of my success principles training. It's something I use every day too. So it's good stuff. September 15th, I will be on my way to Charlotte, North Carolina, and the Graphics Pro Expo out there. And the day before, I get to host the Start Here Academy. And I get to be the MC and get to highlight 3 amazing makers and influence as they kind of share inspiration, how they got started, great tips about startup. And here's the thing that I'm really excited about too, not only that kind of those tips about starting up, but the startup mindset. I don't care if you've been in business 30 years, you have to cultivate that startup mindset. And so we're going to really talk a lot about that and just what that means and how we can incorporate it. There's a huge host of amazing sponsors for that event. So I'm really looking forward to being at that program. So if you go to osg.link/SHA, which stands for Start Here Academy, you can check out more details about that. September is going to be a crazy month for me. Right after that, heading to the Sublimation Summit in Peachtree City, Georgia, on September 23rd. And then that evening, hopping in the car and motoring over to Myrtle Beach, North Carolina for the Everything Embroidery Market. So I'll be there on the 24th. It's happening on the 22nd through the 24th. And I'll be there just for that last day and bringing 3 topics that afternoon. So apparently they just got me in a room in the back and said, here, have a screen, go to town. And I'm like, all right, I'm doing it. I'm going to be talking about pricing for profit and confidence. I'm going to be talking about keys to starting a successful product decorating business. And I'm also going to be talking about finding your customers to stand out in a crowd. So I'd love to see you over there in Myrtle Beach. And then last but not least, Terry, I think this is rounding out the year for me. Who knows what will happen between now and then, but October 19th through the 21st, we will be out at the Printing United show in Las Vegas. And so make sure you come by, make sure you stop by. We'll actually have a Two Regular Guys booth there. We want to talk to you guys. We want to get to take pictures and shake hands and video and the whole nine and just have a great time hanging out. I will have the blow up couch there, Terry, for sure. The big one.
And we will be recording you when you come by our booth. So
that's right. Be prepared. All right. Well, Terry, I think we've had a great show here. We've come to the close of this show here. We want to thank Joe from AMB3R Creative and sorry for mispronouncing the name. The 3 got us, but
sorry and I repeated it just the way you did. So
yeah, followed my lead. That's a bad idea for you, Terry. But anyhow, so thank you so much, Joe. And also want to thank Jeremy. We went out on LinkedIn and said, hey, we need some new guests. And Jeremy recommended Joe and connected me with him. And when I had a chance to talk with Joe on the phone before we got this show together, I was like, yeah, this is going to be awesome. And Joe came through just as expected. So thank you very much, Joe, for being here.
Absolutely. Tons of great information. We also want to thank our show producer, Eric Campbell. I know, Eric, you wanted to jump in here and you had lots of comments to make, I'm sure, but next week you have that opportunity. But thanks for all the magic you do in the background.
Yes. Thanks very much. And I think next time we have Joe on, I think we do need to have Eric in there too, to just round that out. Right.
So back away from the microphones.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, we'll bring Eric in and then you and I will, we'll go do the producer. It'll take 2 of us to keep up with Eric, but awesome. All right. Well, as you mentioned, Terry, next week we are going to be revisiting our non-decorator skills, the skills that business owners need that maybe don't necessarily relate to the digitizing, the screen making and things like that, but very important skills inside of our business. And we will be interviewing while still making him produce our very own Eric Campbell. So we are really looking forward to that, Terry.
Absolutely, me as well. And that was a fill-in show that turned into a 2-parter. How's that?
I know, it's shocking, right?
All right. Until then, I'm Terry Combs. He's Aaron Montgomery.
We are the 2 Regular Guys.
Here we go. We're out.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening to 2 Regular Guys. Check out our website at 2regularguys.com. That's the number 2, regularguys.com. You can also interact with us over at our Facebook page, facebook.com/2regularguys, or send us a tweet, twitter.com/2regularguys. And we have a YouTube page. You can find all that from our website, 2regularguys.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to spending some time with you again next week.